The feast of democracy and the reluctant guest. Freedom can only be maintained if exercised. The coming Saturday and Sunday are important days for the local inhabitants. They are polling days set aside for the business of voting. Being Swiss myself, I too am invited to cast my vote. But I'm ashamed to say that I do not relish the invitation. I find little joy in the opportunity of recording my say in the government of my country. And what, as a good Democrat, should I prize as a privilege, I regard rather as a daunting duty from which I would be glad to escape. My aversion to this business of voting, I'm afraid, is shared by other Swiss Democrats, many others. For this reason, it holds, I believe, a lesson for all of us, one that I would, therefore, like to share with you this morning. The vote, the right to vote, is generally viewed as one of the great achievements of civilization. And the degree of civilization attained by a particular country is frequently measured by this question of the vote, a question which always concerns the realities of political power. Where in the state does this power lie? Is it concentrated in the hands of one man, an absolute ruler, say a king or president? Alternatively, is it shared by a small number of powerful men, as in the case of the colonels who control Greece a few years back? Or do people have some say in the government of their country through representatives who are answerable to them, and who may therefore be dismissed if they betray the trust which the electors have placed in them? If such a system of popular control has been established, another question arrives. How many people do in fact have the right to vote? Do you, to exercise your vote, have to be a property owner, an adult over 18, 20, or 21, a member of the male sex? And, further question, can you vote for any political party, or are there some parties excluded from political power? Please do not misunderstand me. Forms of government vary from country to country, and what works in one society does not necessarily work in another. Democracy may not be suitable everywhere, and there may well be countries where power needs to be vested in the hands of a strong ruler. Nevertheless, people tend to distrust such autocratic government because they fear, often from experience, all power that goes unchecked. They want, in fact, to have a say in the way their lives are run. Only in this way do they feel secure. The popular clamor for participation in government has been particularly marked in recent years. And here I am not referring only to government in the narrow political sense. What is true of the state is also true of other institutions, factories, universities, even schools. In factories, the workers want to sit on the management boards. In universities, the students want to control their courses, force cops off the campuses, and burn compromising admission files. Whilst in schools, pupils want to make sure that teachers have not abused their grading powers. Marking, they fear, may be in need of a few adjustments. They must ensure that justice is done. In all this laudable endeavor, there is an unmistakable trend. People everywhere want to voice their views, assert their political will. They want to participate in the business of government. And much of the tension in our present-day world springs from popular frustration over the restriction placed on such popular participation. Now, you may be interested to know that Switzerland has long offered its citizens an exceptional measure of political participation. If in other countries participation means voting once every 4 or 5 years, here in Switzerland it means voting 4 or 5 times a year. And instead of voting for a president, a political representative, or a party here, People also vote on particular issues, bills, which Parliament presents to them for their approval, and which in fact are often rejected. Petitions, which the people have got up, and so on. Thus, on Saturday and Sunday, we are invited to settle no less than 5 vital questions. Should we, like an increasing number of European countries, introduce summertime? A new tariff that would increase the price of bread but would help us to balance our budget? Should we make another attempt to face up to the problem of abortion by legalizing it? Should we finance our universities and our research with the help of federal funds? Finally, in addition to these 4 federal laws, we are asked to consider a proposal for the suppression of private automobile and air traffic on 12 Sundays in the year. The last proposal comes to us in the form of a popular petition. While not favored by our federal parliament or government, this initiative is supported by all our environmental organizations, including the World Wildlife Fund. If we count the other issues submitted on the ballot since last September, we arrive at a total of 14. And I am not counting the elections of our deputies. Not for the matter has the year run its course. Marvelous, isn't it? Marvelous to have such a large say in the business of government. Here we have a situation that fulfills Abraham Lincoln's generous dream of popular democracy. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. As a Swiss citizen, I should feel privileged. Unfortunately, Swiss democracy is not quite so marvelous, with polls sometimes as low as 30% of their supposed total. It is clear that many Swiss adults fail to appreciate their privileged participation in the government, their responsibility as enfranchised citizens. What is the reason for this widespread indifference? To vote, you have to be well informed. Doing your homework here means reading the newspapers carefully and following special TV programs concerned with election issues, perhaps also attending meetings organized by the different political parties. Above all, it means studying the texts of the bills laid out before the electorate. For the coming weekend, this legislation comes to 40 pages of fine print, and needless to say, it is not light reading. In fact, it is a great bore. Another reason why people are apt to spurn these privileges of a free society is that they prefer to sit on the fence, like the dying Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet, but without his excuse. Their attitudes to political parties and policies they peddle is one of a plague on both your houses. But in abstaining in this way, they are, of course, merely helping the enemies of democracy. Those extremists of left and right who use democratic institutions such as the vote in order to destroy them. This brings us back to the beginning of our meditation. In the preamble to the Swiss Constitution, which we are now in the process of revising, we find as a warning the sentence with which I began. Freedom can only be maintained if exercised. Theodore Sen.